Code of Jewish Law, Chapter 50. Chapter 50. I've left my reading glasses somewhere else, so we're going to try with the regular glasses. So you'll excuse me if I slip up my words at all. You know, it's I used to just have one pair of glasses, and then the optometrist told me I need two for bifocals. So I asked him what changed. He said too many birthdays. That's okay. I'll take as many as I can get in Mitzvah Shem. Not complaining. So chapter 50. So klolim b'bracha rishayna b'birchas hanenin. We're going to have certain general rules and principles that apply to the brachas we say before foods and other brachas of things that we take benefit from. So essentially, the bracha on food falls into a category called birchas hanenin, which literally means the blessings of things on things that you benefit from. And to a certain extent, it's asking permission or showing appreciation from the fact that we can enjoy and benefit from various things that Hashem gave us in this world. For example, food. Okay, so Sif Aleph, number 1. Tziv, it's written, it's a pasuk in Tehillim, a verse in Tehillim, says that Hashem ha'aretz ha'malaya, to Hashem belongs the world. Yes, Mordechai.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure whether we're going to get to it today, but that reminds me that today and tomorrow, the last chance to say Birchas Elanos.
That is correct. Yeah, it's actually a good reminder. So during the month of Nissan, we say a blessing on blossom of fruit trees. So if you haven't had a chance yet, time is running out. So most Sidurim, you should have a page that has a list of blessings, the various blessings. It'll be one of the blessings, and so to thank Hashem for the fruit trees. How we have so much good in the world. So back to what we're learning. Aleph, number 1, Ksiv, it's written, La Hashem ha'aretz ha'malaya, to Hashem belongs the world and everything that's in it. What does this mean? This means shehakol hu k'ma hektish. Everything in the world is like hektish. Hektish literally means consecrated, but hektish refers to things that belong like to the Beis Mikdash. People gave a donation to Hashem. They want to bring an animal as an offering or something. So it all goes in this category of hektish. In other words, everything is holy. Everything belongs to Hashem. And just as a person was not able to benefit from anything that belonged to hektish without redeeming it. So let's say, for an example, a person donated let's say, car to hektish, so they couldn't use it anymore unless they redeemed it. They have to pay its value to the hektish. So just like you can't use something that belongs to hektish for your personal use unless you redeem it. Yeah. So the same thing from this world.
What was the word you said? They donated what?
You know what?
Car or whatever.
A car.
Yeah. Yeah, see that in Australia say car. You don't pronounce R's at the end of a word. You know. Like on your bread, you spread butter.
You mean like C-A-A-H, car?
No, C-A-R. Yeah. What you drive. Right, whatever it happens to be. You donate your donkey, what they had in those days. So you can't use it any more personal use until you redeem it, because it belongs to Hashem. So the same thing, everything in this world, you can't use it without redemption. V'habracha hu hapidyon. And the bracha you make on the food, or whatever else you're benefiting from, or we'll give some other examples as we go through, is like the redemption. You've redeemed it. So the food belonged to Hashem, even though you bought it. and by saying the bracha, by saying the blessing, you make the redemption. And someone who has benefit from things in this world without reciting a blessing, it's like he stole from something that's sanctified to Hashem. So that is the general concept. Everything belongs to Hashem, and the way we get permission to use it is with a bracha. Now, there's no shear, there's no minimum measurement to make a bracha a before blessing. I'll explain what we mean. Let's go an after blessing. To make an after blessing, a blessing after food, you need to have consumed a minimum amount, right? Because it has to be enough to give some type of satisfaction, and different things could be a different amount. But there is a shear. There's a measurement. The certain amount have to be eaten or drunk or whatever in order to make an after blessing. But a blessing that you say before you have something, there's no minimum. So if someone's just having the smallest taste, they need this. The concept of bracha still applies. Shefilo oichel or shoyse koshu. Even if someone's eating or drinking a minute amount, the smallest amount, chayav lavarech bracha rishon. They are still obligated to say a blessing beforehand. Okay, so two principles in number one. First principle was that everything belongs to Hashem, and the way we get permission to use it is making a blessing. And principle number two, for a blessing before we eat or use something, there's no minimum amount that we're going to have. The smallest amount, bracha still applies. Okay, and of course, like usual, any questions at any time, please don't hesitate to ask. Number two.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm extremely thirsty and my mouth is very dry. And I don't want to say, I don't want to take it. I have water by my bedside, so I don't want to take a sip of the water without saying a bracha. But on the other hand, I can't say a bracha because I didn't wash my hands. So, and it's a little difficult for me to make it to the bathroom to wash my hands. Or should I? Is that the preferable thing? Or can I just take a sip?
Okay, so we've got a few options. So I'm presuming you slept more than half an hour.
Yes.
Yeah, so you slept more than half an hour. So I guess you wash your hands. Okay. So a solution. I mean, I guess one option is to have some water in a cup and a bowl next to the bed. You can just wash next to your bed.
Everybody's listening very carefully for this one. So I would suggest you not answer it now and get back to us. Shkoyach. Unless
that's
clear
probably
with
the easiest
something.
thing to do.
What's that?
Probably the easiest thing to do is just say is to have a cup to wash next to the bed.
That's hard for me.
Bed. Yeah. So
okay, you can wait till the end and answer it.
Yeah, we'll discuss after what we can do. Okay,
Going.
number two. Hafal P should be divi'evid. Now, even though after the fact, right? Im ta shehakol al kol davar. If a person made a mistake and said the bracha shehakol on anything, afilo apostle v'al yain, even on bread or wine, which they have the most specific brachas, Yaitse fulfilled his obligation. So we did discuss this once earlier. So let's just go back a step and make sure that everyone's with us. So when we make a bracha on food, we want to give the most specific bracha possible. So let's say we have an apple. Apple grows on a tree. So we want to say the bracha of Boirei Pri Ha'etz. Thank Hashem for the produce that grows on trees. But let's say by mistake, we said Borei Pri Adama, the blessing for produce that grows on the ground. So we weren't meant to, but after the fact it works because the tree grows out of the ground. So since it ultimately came from the ground, the ground blessing is a more...
What? You want to get as specific as possible to what you're blessing.
Yeah, so do you ask a question? No. So we have so again, something grows on a tree, we want to say the blessing of fruit that grows on a tree, because that's the most specific, that describes it in the best way. However, if we said the blessing, Borei Pri Adama, something that produce that grows in the ground, after the fact that works, because the tree grew from the ground. The other way doesn't work, right? If you had a cucumber and you meant to say the blessing that comes from the ground, the fruit of the ground, which that's its blessing. If you said Borei Pri Ha'etz, fruit of a tree, doesn't work because it doesn't grow on a tree. So we went specific in a way that's not applicable. But if you said a more general one, it works. So the most general bracha is shehakol. Shehakol niyob varoi is you bless Hashem that He created everything. Right? He said, so to speak, and created everything. So that is the most inclusive. So most people here, I'm sure, say brachas on all the foods. The correct blessing. But if there's anyone who's just started saying blessings and they're finding it difficult, you can start with everything shehakol, and at least after the fact that works. And then we can start learning new brachas as you go along. So he's saying here that even though after the fact shehakol works for everything, the chatchila asalasis came. In the first instance, you can't do that. Right? So again, people who are new to things as an adult, that's not really the first instance. First instance means we learned when we were children or whatever it was, or But if you know the bracha, the specific bracha, you shouldn't say the wrong one, even if it's more general, which after the fact works. But if you don't know it, it's not a problem. Rather, a person has to study in order to be able to know and understand which bracha is said on each type of food. But if there's something that it's impossible to work out what type of food what type it is. Sometimes you see these weird and wonderful foods, or it's been mushed into some fancy design. You don't know what it is. Or perhaps the halachic authorities have a different opinion as to what the bracha is. And there's not a consensus amongst the halachic authorities what the bracha should be. So then the best thing is to fulfill your obligation with shehakol. An even better option is if you can make hamotzi on a meal and eat it as part of a meal. That's even better. So a classic example would be rice. Right? There's differences of opinion what the blessing on rice is. Right? There's some authorities who say it's mezonus. Generally, that would be more like the sushi rice, the one that sticks together. But some authorities say it's hadama, and some people say shehakol. Some authorities talking about so what do? So there are some people who just say shehakal on rice. And that way, either that's the correct bracha, or if it was meant to be one of the more specific ones, it's included. So that would be an example of something. Another way to get around it is to eat something that's mezonus, say the bracha on that. Eat something else that's adama, say the bracha on that. Take something else that's shehakal and say the bracha on that, and then we said all the brachas. Or wash and make hamotzi on bread and eat rice as part of a meal. But if not, person could say shehakal. Number three.
Once you've
Yeah.
said all the brachas, the example you just gave, somebody then brings out a chocolate cake, which you never saw before, and you want a slice of that. You don't have to make a separate mezainis.
Well, it's going to depend. If a person is planning on eating a meal now, and whatever comes to the meal, let's go back a step. It's your house. Cracker, that's what you're having in mind to have a cracker because you want to say mezainis to eat the rice. And then unexpectedly, the neighbor knocks on the door and brings the chocolate cake, then you're going to have to make a new bracha. It was not in the intention. But if you're at, let's say,
your own table, you're going to have an idea that you're going to have something for dessert. So
yeah. So if you're planning on having something for dessert, or you're going to eat, or you might have the meal, I'm eating whatever my wife's making, unless you're the wife and you made the dinner,
exactly
or your
right.
husband made the dinner, But where you wouldn't make a bracha is, let's say you're at someone's house, or you're at an event, or you're something. Okay, you're taking the rice, so you make these brachas, but really you have in mind you're going to eat whatever's served.
Right.
So you're having everything in mind.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
back to the question of rice. Rice grows in water. It doesn't grow in the earth, does it?
Well, it sort of does. I mean, one way that they grow it is they do it in ponds. That's really just to saturate it. But you could grow it. So that's what leads to the whole dispute, right? That's the view of those who say shehakal, that it's not a like seaweed. Seaweed, even though it's a plant, right? If it grew on the ground, not in the ocean, you would say hadama, but it's shehakal because it's growing there. So that is that view. But
along those lines, in modern times, we have some
hydroponics.
So one has to be very careful in thought about the source of what they're eating. They could be eating a tomato that grew in ground or a hydroponic tomato.
Yeah, and you have a dispute about that as well. What bracha you make, because does a bracha go on a species? Like generally, this is lettuce grows in the ground, or do we look at the specific lettuce that grew hydroponically? So because a bit of a dispute, shehakal covers it because it's the most general. So that's one way to get around it. But it's it's modern commercial food production makes things more complicated, not simpler. That's the more things we have in life that are designed to give us more free time, just make us busier. That's how it is.
Free time, but the rabbis have more work to do, right?
That's right. So Gimel, number 3. So those just joined us, chapter 50, Siman Nun, up to Gimel number 3. Something which you're saying a bracha, you're making a blessing on, because you're going to eat it or drink it, or the reach boy, or you're going to smell it, because we're going to learn shortly certain types of things you smell, it gives you a benefit and enjoyment. So you say a blessing on that. Or la'aslis ba mitzvah, or you're making a bracha to do a mitzvah. For example, lighting menorah or Shabbos candles or putting on tefillin or various things. Actually, Shabbos candles is, yeah, it says sarich shikach oisem koidem bracha biad miyinai. Whatever it is, you take the item in your right hand before the blessing is recited. So let's talk about the food. So you can have an apple. So you hold it in your right hand, unless you're left-handed, in which case you take it in your left hand. Because the idea is to take it in your stronger hand that shows a certain enthusiasm. So and then you should determine in your mind and think about what bracha you're going to say. So even when you start the bracha, you're already aware how it's going to go. Why is that important? That way, when you say Hashem's name, which is the primary and most significant part of the blessing, you already have in mind how the blessing is going to end. In other words, you're connecting the punchline of the bracha to the most important part. But if you didn't hold it at all, it was on the table. But it was in front of you, then yotza, you fulfilled your obligation. It wasn't the most ideal way to do it, but you've done your obligation. Now, if it's something big, let's say, I don't know, there's this massive cake. So you don't have to pick up the whole cake. You take one slice or whatever, or one spoonful from your serving. And this, likewise, you know, they're got a whole sheep or a cow on a spit, something like that. You don't have to pick up the whole thing. You take your piece, what you're going to eat, your mouthful. So that's what you hold. Nevertheless, if it's in front of you, you fulfilled your obligation. But if it wasn't in front of you at all when you made the blessing, rather it came afterwards. So even though when you made the bracha, you had in mind to have this food, Lo yotza, you didn't fulfill your obligations. You have to make a new bracha. Now this is slightly different to what was asked before about the cake that came after you made mazonos. Here we're talking about your initial mazonos. Let's say, so what you meant to do, you take the cracker and you hold it in your right hand, or left hand if you're left-handed, and you say the blessing and you eat it. If the crackers were on a tray on the table in front of you, okay, after the fact, that works. But if there were no crackers there was no mazonos there, nothing that's got that blessing, and you're just having in mind when they bring it, I'm going to eat it, the blessing doesn't help. Because you didn't say the blessing on something. This is slightly different to the question that was asked before, when you made the bracha on the cracker in your hand, having in mind you're also going to eat whatever else comes in the meal, and then they bring the cake afterwards. Then it works for that. When we're saying when it's not there, the blessing doesn't help, that's if the actual thing you're making the blessing on wasn't there. Okay, I hope I clarified that and didn't make it more confusing. All right. Number 4. Someone took a fruit, piece of fruit, but he's got a fruit in his hand and he's going to eat it. That's the plan. Avarach alav, and he makes the bracha, and they're just about to put in his mouth. V'nafal miyadav nevad, and then it fell. He dropped it, and it rolled away. It's gone. Or nimas achila, or it went splat when you dropped it, and it's now repulsive, and it's not edible anymore. Okay. Similarly, before we say what we do about it, we'll give another example. In Baruch HaKois Mashka, you made a blessing on a cup of on a drink, Nishbach HaKois, and it spilled. Right now you got an empty cup, and you're not planning to lick the drink off the floor. My son sent me a picture of his 2-year-old licking his spilled drink off the floor. You know, my grandson. You know, 2-year-olds will do that, but we're not doing that. We're not getting down on our hands and knees and it's gone. It's a dirt floor even. It's gone. So what do you do now? What do you do now? The thing you made the blessing on is not there anymore. So now what do we do? So it's going to depend. There's a few different possibilities. Possibility number one. The fun of oid minze. There's more of this thing in front of you. So yeah, you took a cracker, but there's a whole plate of crackers. You poured yourself a drink. There's still a bottle of the drink. Now, and you had in mind when you made the blessing on the cracker, you had in mind you're gonna have a few crackers. Unfortunately, this one dropped down the drain. So if that's the case, no problem. Im Kain, if that's what happened, Haisa bracha gam al shar. This blessing you made went on everything else that's there. You don't need to make a new blessing. You just take some more and fine. And that's probably the majority of the time you make a blessing. You know, people sit down to dinner, they're going to eat a piece of chicken. They say a shahakal on the chicken. Okay, if something happened to that piece, normally there's another piece, or there's, they drop what was on their fork, there's more on their plate, or there's whatever it is. So that's if you had in mind to eat more. Aval stam, person didn't have in mind anything. They just thought, I'm going to eat a cracker, little snack. Then loy chala bracha rak al mashbi shaya biyadoi. Then the blessing only works on what was in his hand, because you wouldn't intend to eat anything else. Usually, when you come, you have a cookie. Yeah, you have one that's in your hand, but you know how it works. It's most of us don't only have one cookie, right? It's we might be better off if we did, but that's another story. Right? We're planning on having more, but if a person didn't, that's it. They're just really one cookie, and I'm on my way. Well, then Sarachal Baruch Shenis, to have more, take another one, you have to make a new bracha. Because the bracha only worked when it was in the hand. Similarly, if you intended, Mordechai.
Well, you're allowed to make a bracha on before drinking from a water fountain, even though the water that's coming out at the moment you make the bracha is down the drain by the time you finish the bracha, because more water is coming out of the water.
But that's the same idea, because your intention is whatever comes out of there that actually makes it to your mouth. Right. That's right. Now, similarly, let's say a person did intend to eat more. So you got your one cracker, and I'm making a blessing on the cracker with the intention I'm going to eat more crackers. However, slight twist, it wasn't there. Only one cracker was there when you made the blessing. The rest was still inside the house, and they're bringing it out. Just, you got a sneak preview. You got one before they made it out. So, and then you made the blessing on it, and unfortunately it dropped, it got ruined. And afterwards, the rest came out. So before we said it's on the table in front of you or wherever. So that was no problem. But here it wasn't there when you made the bracha. So again, Sarach Levarach Shenis, you have to make a new bracha. Avol, however, Be'inyan Shimhaya Oichel Oshoises Rishon. If you ate or drank at least a small amount of what you made the bracha on before it dropped or spilled or got lost. So you got one bite of the cracker or one sip of the drink, or after the cup fell, there was still a little bit left. Then loy hayatzarach levarech al zeshuv loy. You don't have to make a new bracha on what they bring out, even though it wasn't there when you made the bracha, because A, you ate some of the original thing you made the bracha on, and B, you had in mind to have more when it comes. So Hachashani, so here that it's different, the bracha works. All right. Any questions on that? It's a bit of a complicated one because you had a few options. Yeah, David.
I have a question going back to number 3. So at the last part, we said that the object was not before him when he recited the blessing, but it was brought to him afterwards. Even though he had it in mind when he recited the blessing, he did not fulfill his obligation and has to say the blessing again. So the footnote here says, the Pri Megadim and the Chai Adam and other authorities do not require a second blessing if one definitely knows that the food will be brought to him. What does the Alter Rebbe hold?
That's a good question.
If you're not sure, you can get back to
Um,
us later.
Yeah, I'm going to presume generally like the Prima Godden, similarly, well, the other way around actually, but yeah. So if you definitely know it's coming, then perhaps you don't need another blessing. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
All right. Hey, number 5. Now, once you make a blessing on whatever you're doing, whether it's eating or doing a mitzvah, we can't have an interruption between the blessing and the action. And in the first instance, there shouldn't be any interruption. Now we're going to discuss, well, after the fact, certain interruptions are going to cause you to require a new blessing, and some won't. So that's what we're going to discuss here. So first, we're going to discuss a pause, a interruption of time. So you didn't speak or do something else, just there was a delay. So number 5, you shouldn't pause for the period to say a dibur. Now, a dibur is the time it takes you to say the words Shalom Alecha Rabbi. So I don't know, was that 2 seconds, 3 seconds, whatever? It's not a long time. So a person make a bracha and then take a bite of the food, or if they're lighting Shabbos candle, or Shabbos candle make the bracha after this, Hanukkah candles, you make the bracha and straight away you start to light. Now I will point out, let's say you have your shamash and the Hanukkah candle, and you put it to the candle, it might take sometimes 2-3 seconds for it to actually take to actually be kindled. That's not a problem because you're involved in it the whole time, even though the result had a pause. Likewise, when you take a bite of an apple, you don't swallow it the first second. You're chewing it. So there's also a pause till you swallow it, but you're involved in the act of eating it. So that's not considered an issue. The idea is you start the activity, whether it's the eating or a mitzvah or whatever it happens to be, straight away. So there shouldn't be a pause between the blessing and the eating. Even ideally, the chewing, at least, there shouldn't be a pause. And you shouldn't interrupt by speaking until you swallowed at least some of the food. Why is the swallowing significant? In the brackets it says, because just to chew food, you don't need to make a bracha. Right? In the old days, I know this sounds a little repulsive, but in the old days, had they make baby food, these people chewed on it and they spat it out. It's lucky the babies didn't know how food comes, else they wouldn't be very wouldn't be very appetizing. Saw a comic once, my son eats like a bird, and then the mother regurgitates into the kid's mouth, like the bird's feet. All right, sorry, don't mean to repulse anyone, but they have. So if you're only chewing it and you weren't planning on eating it, you don't make a bracha. So the act of chewing does not require a bracha. That's why you need to swallow before you make an interruption. Okay, so ideally, we make a bracha on the food, we take a bite, we chew it, we swallow some, then we can talk. Now, what happens if we did talk? If you spoke, you interrupted by speaking between the blessing and the food, about something that has not to do with the food. So if it has to do with the food, let's say you're making hamotzi, and you ask someone to pass you the salt. You're not meant to do that. But after the fact, since it was about the meal, or if you, so again, there shouldn't be any interruption. But after the fact, if it had something to do with what you're doing, it's not interruption. But if it had nothing to do with the interruption with what you're doing, person said break prayer 8, before they take a bite of the apple, someone said, "How are you?" And he says, "Oh, very well, thank you." Baruch Hashem, then takes a bite. Well, he's made an interruption. So therefore, a person has to make another blessing. Now, we mentioned before that a pause, even not doing anything, is a problem. But if a person paused in silence, he doesn't have to make doesn't have to repeat the blessing. As long as you didn't take your mind off it, right? So a person makes a blessing and goes to bed, that doesn't help. Yeah.
Rabbi, in a case like that, wouldn't the first bracha have been a bracha lavatollah, which is not such a good thing?
Correct. It's about Torah. Whenever you have to make a new blessing, the first blessing went down the drain, so to speak. Yeah. So David, you had a question?
I'm assuming with chewing gum, you would still make a bracha because there is the taste. Even though you're not swallowing the gum, you're getting the juices and the taste and flavoring.
Well, gum is a whole issue. Since you're mentioning it, gum is a whole issue because you don't make a bracha on taste, and if you only chew, then you don't make a bracha. Well, there is an opinion that since you're getting a little more than taste, like the sugar, whatever's coming out, so gum, whatever you do is wrong. So you have a few options. Option number 1 is don't chew any gum. Option number 2 is make a bracha, take a small bite, and swallow a small piece, and then chew the rest. Right? And even though they used to tell us when we were kids that if you do that, it'll gum will sit in your stomach for 7 years, and it'll catch an apple seed and it'll grow into a tree and everything else, but apparently that's not the case. Option number 3 is to make shahakal on something else and have in mind the gum, and do that as well. So that's really the option. So really, a person should try and make a bracha with something else, or make a bracha and bite off a small piece, and have it. It's quite problematic, just chewing it and then spitting out without swallowing anything, and without. Do you make a bracha or not make a bracha? It's yeah. All right. Why would to make gum? If you blow bubbles, that makes another problem. Because although Shulchan Aruch does not discuss gum, Shulchan Aruch actually it's discussing bread, but it's used as a prototype that when you chew something, so when you chew something well, there's little bits of blood from your gum that goes into the food, and that's not a problem as long as it doesn't exit the mouth. But if you chewed on bread and then it came out, you can't put the same bread back in. So the same would apply to gum that you blew the bubbles. So yeah, so that's just something else to bear in mind. If unless you like to blow bubbles.
What are you saying? Don't blow bloody bubbles.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Don't blow bubbles. Or if you blow bubbles, maybe don't put it back in.
Why can't
So
you,
I will.
Rabbi,
Sorry?
why can't you, if you accidentally, if a piece of bread pops out of your mouth, why can't you put it back in?
So if you chewed on it then you can't put it back in because we're concerned that there's blood from your gums in it, minute amounts. So the blood from your mouth that does not leave its, or from your body in general, does not leave its place, is not a problem. Does not transgress the prohibition of having blood. But once it's left its place, so someone had a, they bit their tongue or something, and so it's the gums is a little bit of blood. I mean, you might want to spit it out because you don't like having it in your mouth. It's one thing, but technically, you didn't have to. If you swallowed, it's not the end of the world. But a person, put some in a cup, you can't drink that afterwards. It's once it's left its place, comes, even though it's your blood, becomes part of the prohibition of blood. So we'll just start the sentence again. It was right. I will im haya. Sorry. I will im shah b'shtika. If a person paused in silence, ein tzarich lachs levarach, you don't have to make a new blessing. Shai shel tzarich achila, and any pause that is for the purpose of the eating, loy choshev hesaklal, is not considered a interruption at all. So we're going to give an example. So therefore, you want to eat a large fruit, right? So you have a watermelon, let's say. Okay, so ideally you should make a bracha on the whole fruit. If you make a bracha on something whole, well, something that we learned in the previous chapter. So let's say you make a bracha on the whole fruit. Well, even an apple. So you make a bracha on the whole apple, and then you want to cut a piece. You just want to eat a piece. Yovarech shapri shalom. You say the bracha when the fruit is whole. B'shum da mitzvah l'varach al shalom, because as we said in previous chapter, that the 2 chapters ago, that the ideally you should make on the whole fruit. That gives it more importance and significance. V'ashia lo have a hefsek, and then this pause while you're cutting it is not an interruption because it's a pause for the sake of eating. You're in the act of eating, similar to chewing before you swallow. Because it's needed, it's for the purpose of eating. However, different though. If a person wants to eat a fruit, and he doesn't have any more, he's only got the one fruit, and his concern is, I don't know, maybe this fruit has worms in it, which would make it inedible. Then you cut it open and check before you eat it. So figs is an example. Figs you need to break open and look. And it might only be one in every 30, 40 figs or whatever it is, but you won't miss it when you see it. So you can't say that if that's the only one you only have one. You can't make the bracha and then open it up because then you got to throw it away. So you need to open it up first. If you have others and it's not the end of the world, you plan to eat a few, so you'll eat the next one. Okay, number 6. Hashaisa mayim, you drink water. And the person pours out a drop of water because of the concern of harmful water. Okay, most people don't do this nowadays, but there are people who still have the custom. There was a custom done in Talmudic times that people used to, when they had a drink, they would pour out the first bit before they drank it. And the concern was shindalas or whatever it is. It's a Gemara in Chulin. I don't think, but today they're pretty much being banned from the world. It's not so much a concern. But if someone does it, they still have the custom to do it. They should do it before they start to drink. not after the blessing. It's not an interruption. The issue is it's disgracing the blessing, because you say the blessing and then you start throwing some of it out. It's like makes it look like you're saying a bracha on garbage, that you're throwing some of it out. So it's just not respectful to the blessing. Okay, number 7. Time is a tavshil and sarach melach yetzaboy. So you're not eating now. Yeah, David.
Is that pouring out of the water? Does that apply to all liquids except for wine? Like would it apply to beer?
Those who do it, some people do all kinds of liquids. Some people open cans. I mean, there's still a few people do it. Most people don't do it nowadays.
But most people in Chabad do it. No?
I don't know. I wouldn't say most people do.
Yeah, let me rephrase that. Those people that are makpid are.
Those people do it. They do it before they say the bracha. They should do it before they say the bracha.
So my question is, would that apply also to juice?
Yeah, I think I don't know about juice, but I think it's other. It is other liquids, but I think it might be water-based liquids.
Okay. So not milk, not juice.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
Number 7. Someone's not eating now, they're just tasting it. They want to see does it need salt. So they can put it in the mouth, they're going to spit it out. So, you don't need to make a bracha before tasting it. But if you're going to swallow it, you're going to take a bit of soup and you're going to swallow it. Yesh sofik. Now you've got yourself into a doubt if you need to make a bracha or whether you do. Kivan shubalaya, because you're swallowing it, so maybe you need a bracha. Or possibly maybe you don't need a bracha because your intention was not really to eat; it's just to taste. So, what do? You got yourself in a situation of doubt, and doubtful brachas are problematic. So, therefore, a person should be very careful. That he's intending to eat it. If you're going to take a bit of soup, for example, and you're going to swallow it, intend to eat it, not just to taste it. And then you make a bracha and you swallow it, and there's no problem. Okay. Number 8, another twist. You're eating or drinking for medicinal purposes. Okay, so you wouldn't have had it otherwise, maybe not even hungry or thirsty. So what happens now? So it depends. If it's something that has a pleasant taste. So you need to take a tablet, and you're not really thirsty. You wouldn't have taken a drink now, but you're washing it down with, let's say, orange juice. And you like the flavor, has a nice taste, orange juice. But now memeno, so therefore you are getting benefit. You're getting enjoyment from the juice. Right? It tastes good. You're having hana benefit. So therefore, you make the appropriate blessing before, and if you had enough, the blessing afterwards, the blessings apply. This is opposed to, let's say, you wash the pill down with water and you're not thirsty. So if you're thirsty and you wash all the water, then you're having benefits. You make the blessing. But say you're not thirsty at all. You wouldn't have a drink at all, except you have to take this pill. And water doesn't have taste. So you're not getting benefit because it's not quenching your thirst. You're not getting benefit because there's no taste to enjoy. So you don't make a blessing on that water. So either with something that has a nice taste, or something that is benefiting is quenching your thirst. Just a question a minute. I just want to finish here, because here we're going to have something. Even if it's something that's normally forbidden to eat. So normally something is not kosher, you don't make a blessing, because you're not allowed to have it. So it's a joke out of the blessing. Saying Hashem's name on something that Hashem told you can't have. But sometimes, not always, but sometimes, let's say it's a life-threatening situation, person doesn't have this medicine, they're going to die, God forbid. So now the Torah says he can have this food. Since the Torah has permitted this food to him at this moment, and it's got a good taste, you have to make a blessing. Yeah. Robert, what was your question?
Oh, I just wanted to say that I have a very dry mouth from medicinal for medical reasons. So there's something that I use that's called TheraBreath dry mouth lozenges. It's kosher. It's got a on it. Comes in 2 different flavors, but it's specifically used for medical purposes. So it's not like a sucking candy. So I make a blessing. I just wanted to point out that there are such things like that.
Yeah. So again, probably best to make a blessing and bite off a small piece and swallow.
Even though I'm sucking the whole thing, the whole thing's
Yeah,
being
even though
dissolved.
eventually that way, significant piece is swallowed, you can start talking or something afterwards. So that's something, and then it's yeah. So yeah, but here that's true. But I was even talking about you might might be a person who they have to eat I don't know, monkey, right? That's his cure. Monkey blood. I don't know. Now it could taste disgusting. Let's say it tastes good. So since the Torah said person could have it because that's the only thing that's going to save them because they're medicine, then they would have to make a blessing. So that's if it has a nice flavor. The imhu davar, but let's say it's bitter. Sometimes medicine tastes terrible, and it's got the best hechsher even. It's a kosher, but it doesn't taste nice. So you're not having any benefit. It's not like you're eating a whole meal out of it, so it's filling you up. You're taking this one pill, and it tastes and has a bitter taste, or this drinking this medicine has a bitter taste, and it's not einam of archalov. Then you don't make a blessing, right? If it doesn't, if you're not getting hana, we're gonna, we loosely translate hana as benefit, but it also means like enjoyment. There's nothing. Okay, you're getting medicinal benefit, but when it comes to your enjoyment, there's no enjoyment benefit. So therefore, there's no bracha. Hashaisa beitzachaya, someone who drinks a raw egg, the sasech koiloi for their voice. Right, so the chazonim, they drink their raw eggs. So even though you're not benefiting from the taste, doesn't really have a taste, it doesn't taste good. Nevertheless, you are benefiting nourishment-wise. You're still getting an egg, you're getting the protein, you're getting the nourishment. The mizan zayin, because the egg provides the nourishment, so therefore, mavarachalov, you have to make a blessing on it, even though there's no taste at that moment. Okay, number 9. Let's squeeze in one more. Nichnos loidava begroinoi. You got something stuck in your throat. Now, v'shoyse mashkin or oichatichas pas, a person now takes a drink or they eat some bread or something to help dislodge what's stuck in their throat. They're not drinking the water now because they're thirsty. They're not thirsty. They wouldn't have drunk it. Just they got something stuck in the throat, so they're taking a drink of water. La blah to help them swallow it. Or if he eats something else that is tasty, even though it's only to dislodge. You have to make a bracha. So anything other than water. So I shouldn't have used water as an example. Any drink that's not water. Water doesn't have a taste. So if we have anything that has a taste, or any food that has either good taste or nourishment, even though you're only having it to help something go down, you have to make a bracha. But if a person drinks water when they're not thirsty, but rather just for the sake of helping the person swallow whatever's in their throats, either something got stuck or they're taking a pill, something like that, or for any other purpose other than quenching his thirst, lo yavarach, you don't make a blessing. Of course, if you're thirsty, you would. V'she'ein hana la'adam shtiyas hamayim el shul shoyis l'tzimoy, because a person does not get any enjoyment from drinking water unless they're thirsty. There's no taste, and if it's not providing quenching thirst, there's no real benefit. Okay, we won't have time to finish next one, but we'll start with the idea. We'll give a little introduction. Let's say a person was going to have let's do the candy, something small. So he says the blessing. Sorry, he forgot to say the blessing. Takes the candy, puts it in his mouth, and he didn't suck on it or bite or anything. It's just the whole thing's there. So you could take it out and say a blessing, and the food didn't become repulsive. You know, a hard candy, you bring 1 second in your mouth, and so you can make the bracha and put it back in. It's no problem. But some foods, once you put in your mouth, particularly if you chewed it, it becomes repulsive. And if you're going to take it out, you're not really going to eat it again. So we're going to start getting into differences of if you put something in your mouth without making a bracha, when you spit it out. Certain times you can't spit it out, but you'll push it to the side of your mouth, because the issue is when you praise Hashem, we have a verse, it's in Tehillim, that says, Yamale fi tilasecho. My mouth is filled with your praises. So when we say the bracha, we should have an empty mouth of anything else. Only the praise, the thank to Hashem should be what fills our mouth. So if we put something in our mouth, we're going to take it out. So we're going to mention certain foods that we can take out, certain foods you can't take out. Let's say water. What are you going to do? Juice. You push it to the side of your mouth, at least have the majority of your mouth full. And we'll have a number 10. We'll go into the details. Any questions?
Yes, Rabbi. It would seem to me, in the issue pertaining to the concept of hana'ah, that even if you ingest, let's say, medication that is not considered food per se, it would seem to me that you are getting hana'ah, because it was Hashem gave you this gift, if you will, to give you a refuah. So I don't know how.
So that's why the problem is when we translate into English, hana is benefit. It's true, you get benefit from medicine, but in this context, hana means either gave you nourishment and or you enjoyed the taste. So if it was a small pill, there's no nourishment, it's a tiny little thing, and let's say it was bitter or had no flavor, it's a capsule, so there's no direct hana. So that's why I'm saying hana also, although we translate as benefit, it's borderline half the English word benefit and half the English word enjoyment. There has to be some, which the medicine, true, it gives you a medicinal benefit, but it doesn't give you an enjoyment benefit.
Pleasure.
Yeah. Under certain circumstances, you might translate the word hana as pleasure also, but not so much you're eating apple. I don't think anyone. The truth is, I know you ever listen to some of Rabbi Victor Miller has
Yeah.
a tape about eating an apple, and he talks about how he visualized and how juicy it is, and how Hashem made the whole process. He goes through the whole process to help develop the appreciation. So when he says the bracha, he says it with his whole heart. You know, that's so. But most people, you know, they might have a good chocolate or something. They go, oh, you know. Many years ago, I lived in Brisbane in Australia, and there used to be this fellow who used to make the herring for the kiddush, and he really made it. And we had this visitor came from England, and I remember they took some of the herring and go, heavenly. You know, that's Hana.
Bye.
Shkaya.
So wish everyone a wonderful week, and we'll see everyone next week, God willing.
Thank you for helping us start it.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thank
Take
you,
care.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you.